Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Security Squawk podcast. Cyber criminals, guys, are literally everywhere, breaching insurance giants like Aflac, stealing millions of records from health-conscious shoppers, right? And I'll kind of jump into what Aflac does here in a minute. Airline passengers are now the latest targets in a new wave of attacks by a particular cyber criminal group that's making waves around the world. And the FBI has issued a fresh warning around them and what they're up to. They're not only trying to hit the airlines, they're trying to hit a bunch of other things as well. But it's a little bit scary when they take aim at our skies. Yeah. Andre will clue us in on what's going there. And we're going to talk about, Randy, I don't even know what you're going to talk about. I have to go look at our show notes. You're going to Hungryroot, and you're doing Hungryroot and the marketing firm Tenacious Marketing.
Yeah, there's some really interesting tidbits in there.
We'll go with that. So I'm going to start us off, guys. We're going to go in with this big one. I want to say I feel like my brain is telling me that this company is a Berkshire Hathaway company, but I'm not sure. Aflac hacked Social Security numbers, claims, and health data at risk in insurance firm cyber attack. And this is number one. It's a slew of cyber attacks against insurance companies lately. It's happened, guys. We actually had a well-known MSP industry vendor have a little incident yesterday. Don't know if that's related to how these companies were getting hacked. Because Erie and Philly Insurance, two big underwriters in the independent insurance world, they had to deal with their own cyber attack recently. And here we have Aflac, which Aflac is one of those interesting insurance stories out there. They kind of provide supplemental health insurance. So if you have health insurance, this is kind of like gap coverage. If you have gaps in your coverage, or you have to pay a high deductible or something like that, or you have limits, that's where Aflac can come in and provide some additional insurance. And that's really why it was dubbed at the beginning of the show is like, health or, risk or health conscious shoppers, because you really only do business with Aflac if, you're really concerned about your coverage running out in some way and you just want that coverage. And, insurance, in today's day and age, it's all about trust. And what happens when these companies that you rely on to protect your information, you have to give up this personal information to these companies to even do business with them. And they can't even protect their own networks, right? And they're writing you insurance policies, and they're making you, a lot of times, if you're going for cyber insurance, they're making you have all these requirements yourself. And then, boom, you see that your own cyber insurer doesn't have these requirements in place because, quite frankly, what we saw yesterday, if they had certain things in place, we wouldn't have even gotten that email, but we did. So Aflac has suffered a serious cyber attacks, and so have these other insurance companies. And what do these breaches, in your mind, do to this industry that's supposed to kind of, I guess, in a way, do you agree with my thought process that this industry should kind of be the gold standard when it comes to this stuff?
1,000,000%.
And they're not, right? They're failing, or maybe they are. They're just better than every other industry. And like Bryan comes on here and says every week that every industry sucks at doing this because they don't put any money into it.
Well, they have a ton of regulation as is. I mean, even if they're not the gold standard, I mean, they still have a ton of regulation about customer data and things like that. There's a lot of things they have to go along with from a legal standpoint. But yeah, they ought to be the gold standard, especially, we recently saw, won't name any names. It's not official yet, but, we recently saw a big cyber insurance company get hit. And what, but that one, it's not a matter of, if, it is a matter of when and how, but how big is that blast going to be, that blast radius from the hit? We don't know. The crazy thing is here in this article, at least when this article came out, they didn't know exactly what was taken. They thought some of this information was at risk. And so they're still not giving us a whole lot about what's come out yet.
Yeah, and just going, I know we're kind of going sidebar in that insurance company, but think about all the times your insurance company has sent you information about your policy. Because I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, man, they've sent me, copies of my, claims and copies of my, all the paperwork that comes with it. But now, just really quick, going back to the Aflac, one of the things that is also interesting is this wasn't them getting breached in the sense of like, oh my gosh, they got hacked. It was pretty easy compared to other type of breaches because it was a social engineering. So this was a human failure, not because of them getting hacked through a firewall or something like that.
Good morning, Derek. Appreciate you joining the show. Remember, hit us up in the comments if you're watching us live right now on a live stream. If you have any questions, want to add to the conversation. But guys, I'm just looking at right now, I'm looking at like what requirements that Aflac has in terms of regulations, right? So number one, they have New York DFS cybersecurity regulations, right? Which is a really strict cybersecurity program, right? So Aflac insures people in the state of New York. And as a result of that, they would have to comply with New York DFS. They also have regulations in California, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Texas, where they have to, will have to provide breach notifications to state regulators and consumers within a 30 to 60 day time frame. So that's going to cost them some cash to get that done. They also have the insurance data security model law that has been adopted by Michigan, South Carolina, Ohio, and others. So they're going to have to deal with states at the end of the day. They also have to deal with the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, or GLBA safeguards, otherwise known as FTC safeguards.
Yep.
They are two separate rules, by the way, and Aflac has to actually follow both of them. And Aflac also has to follow HIPAA. So they pretty much have every single regulation that you could possibly want in your business. This organization has to follow. Some of the things that they potentially could have violated are encryption of data at rest and in transit. If they find any data that may have not been encrypted, they will get fined. If they did not have multi-factor authentication turned on in certain places, they could see major fines and penalties. If any of their endpoints didn't have EDR in place, they could potentially be dealing with fines for each incident there. Any data loss of personal or private information. Any employees that were not required to take security awareness training, and you need to have evidence that that's happening. So if you don't have the evidence, you're going to be in trouble and face fines and penalties. You need to have your backup and disaster recovery plans available for regulators when they come in to see what you have planned out and if you followed it. And they want to know if you've evaluated your vendor risk, meaning your third parties. And that means they are going to want to see copies of questionnaires and things that you've sent them and where you've recorded their answers and evaluated their risk. So those are things based on the regulations that they violated that this company would have had to have done in order to avoid fines and penalties. What do you think their chances are, guys?
Years and years of lawsuits, class action lawsuits. They're in big trouble. But what we typically see down the line is in a couple of months and years, nobody remembers, and the dollar amount that they paid doesn't really affect their stock price, and the world goes on.
We'll see if that holds true, Andre. You're such a cynic.
Literally all of that stuff you just read, I mean, that almost puts them at having to be at a gold standard. Like you
correct. I mean, the government expects these companies to be setting the standard for data protection. And unfortunately, based on what we're seeing here in this headline, just the headline alone tells us that they weren't doing probably half of the things that were in that list in order to get to this place. So it's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. That's what businesses are doing. And, you now have the threat of AI, not only helping the cyber criminals, but also misdirecting funds that should go to cybersecurity right now. Companies are going to invest that in the AI, only further exacerbating this risk that, the average individual has when they share their private data with these companies, just to get something like insurance. So,
and this is this scattered spider group, right? Is who they're thinking it is, or saying
I believe you're right. Yes, the group that you are about to highlight next, when we switch over to you, which we will do right now. But yeah, I mean, this group is very interesting, and that's why I kind of mentioned, that we have a bunch of things going on with this group, not only going after what you're going to talk about, airlines, but going after insurance companies as well. This group, I don't know. I mean, just based on the name alone, Scattered Spider, makes me wonder if it's just a bunch of defunct cyber criminal groups like, the ones that, we used to talk about that no longer are around, and they've all kind of scattered, and this is the name that they're using.
Literally what I was thinking.
So that's why we're talking about it, right? But you've heard of ransomware gangs. We've been talking about them on this show for years, and we've talked about many of them. Many of them have come and gone for various reasons. But we have this Scattered Spider group, and it's now on the FBI's radar, and very well should be, because they're making a lot of noise, and they're targeting certain industries like insurance and airlines. And this should scare the crap out of pretty much every American. When they're coming after your data that insurance companies have, and they want to disrupt, your travel, this is a big deal. And you got to give up a lot of information when you want to travel too, right, guys? And a lot of information is probably profiled on you behind the scenes that you don't realize is being collected and harvested. So, Andre, let's talk about what's going on here, and clue us in on what makes Scattered Spider so dangerous, and why all of a sudden are U.S. authorities worried about this group.
Yeah, so one other company to think of buying of who Scattered Spider had affected is MGM about a year and a half ago. They were the ones behind it. So we know they know what they're doing, and so they have a good track record. And according to the FBI, they're now targeting U.S. airlines, and the hacker group is trying, of course, to steal sensitive data because, as you said, Bryan, we are giving out our driver license, passport information, and also they're looking to deploy ransomware. So if you guys remember when the MGM situation happened, you literally had about 7,000 people in the lobby, couldn't go upstairs, couldn't buy drinks, couldn't play cards. So what happens now, or look at what happened in the UK with the group, the food distribution group, and then all of the different retail supermarkets didn't have anything in the shelves. Just now imagine that in the airline industry, and maybe it's not necessarily American Airlines that gets hacked, but it could be the baggage, or one of the multiple vendors that may get compromised, and then that now stops the operation. So what's interesting also about this is that, again, it's not like how the Aflac, they're using social engineering. And what they're basically doing is they're using AI, and they're using different voice techniques to basically trick the help desk into saying, hey, I'm a user at this airline or this, third-party baggage company or whatever it is. and I lost access to my MFA. And now they try to get MFA on the bad guy's, device, because then they probably already have the password, but they needed the MFA to do that second step authentication. So that's kind of a recap of what's happening.
Randy, thoughts there?
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing, just because, that's a very big vulnerability that they've figured out, is that, if they can fake that voice, and they might not even need to fake the voice, because the help desk at a company this big, the help desk doesn't even really need to know the person. They call in, they're able to get access to the MFA, and then who knows what from there. It's ingenious. It's also a really big vulnerability out there right now, so that we're going to have to all deal with very, very soon.
So the other story around this is this, we'll share this as well. I'll throw it up. We got them targeting Hawaiian Airlines, right? They were hit by a cyber attack yesterday, and by this group, right? And so where do you think this is going, and why do you think that they're going to be trying to hit transportation and infrastructure like this?
Well, with everything is go after the companies that can't afford to be down, right? Schools, hospitals, city governments can't afford to be down. So the last thing you want is irate passengers, yelling because they're late to their wedding, or whatever, their cruise destination, or whatever it is. And July 4th is coming up, right? This Friday. So and FBI is giving out this warning. So they don't just put out warnings just to make themselves feel good. They see something happening, and they're just trying to warn everybody about it.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead on Randy.
Oh, I was just saying that anytime there's anything like what Andre's mentioning, that's a perfect situation for cyber criminals, because there's an extra sense of urgency. They've also said there's going to be a record number of travelers this weekend, or maybe not record, but near record. That just all creates a sense of urgency, and these airlines are going to be more likely to pay. Also, there was a giant storm, I think 4 years ago in Chicago, or maybe 5 years ago. Southwest Airlines just missed like a day and a half of flights, and their antiquated software rerouted people in weird places. They ended up getting fined $400 million. So I'm Hawaiian Airlines. I'm over there looking at, I've got a cyber attack, which could mean delayed flights. I don't want a $400 million fine. So I'm just going to cut a check to the bad guys, and get it done with and move forward. So these are perfect targets for the bad guys.
Anytime the FBI puts out these notices, something happens, and it's like, they're like, hey, I told you so.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. I mean, look, as cliche as it's going to sound, and I don't think too much happened last 4th of July, but we remember what happened, was it 2 or 3, 4, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And that could have turned into one of the biggest hacks of all time, but somehow, some way, a miracle happened. Let's just put it that way. And that's not always going to be the case, number one. People should be concerned heading into this holiday weekend with the FBI, as concerned as they are with this group. I mean, hopefully nothing happens, but I don't like our chances. I mean, I would say that the odds are in the favor of something occurring versus something not occurring.
Mm-hmm.
And what is there anything that somebody who's traveling can do, or do we go back to, I guess my brain goes back to, what can we do better here? Andre, you've always talked about and advocated for separation of information, meaning like don't attach my name to all my other information, make it a random number or something like that you have to cross-reference with another database. I mean, is that where we really need to go with this stuff at some point, or where are we? Like, how can airlines or travelers protect their data from stuff like this, or are you just a sitting duck and you want to fly? This is the risk.
Yeah, I know. I've mentioned in the podcast, like if I go to my doctor's office and they ask for my social, I give them a one number off social, especially when they're asking me on a piece of paper. But for airlines, I mean, you can't lie on that stuff, right? Because they need to cross check it. So as a traveler, just being vigilant, watching out for the phishing text messages, emails, and things like that. But as a traveler, I don't think you could do anything.
You could lock down your freeze your credit.
Yeah, I mean that should be in place, right? But I'm just concerned with how do you prevent it in the first place, right? How do you're such a sitting duck anymore with this stuff? I mean, it's really what it boils down to. And we used to say businesses were the sitting ducks, right? But we're learning that really the businesses that get hacked are the kind of the intermediaries. The real sitting ducks are the people whose identities get stolen and who get scammed out of these things. Because like, look, we're seeing, everybody used to talk about like, the business owner or the business, their information gets stolen and then they're the victims of, a bank fraud or misdirection of funds, when really what's playing out there is individuals. Their information is getting stolen and their money is getting taken out of their bank accounts and credit is being pulled in their names, and they are the real victims here. And these are the stories that are not being told. But I guarantee you that, most people out there know somebody who's been a victim of identity theft in the last 12 months. I know I know 3 people that have had over $20,000 taken from them in the last year as a result of their identity being stolen. And when they steal your identity, they go after everything. They go after your cell phone first, then they start nailing your email accounts, your social media, your bank accounts. They go after everything once they have your stuff and they make you a target. But if they can get control of that cell phone, they got you.
Yep.
They get control of your email or your cell phone and you have everything tied back to one email account or one cell phone number. They're probably going to be successful in taking over your bank account and draining that bank account.
Yep.
Or Schwab account or Robinhood account or whatever they can get their hands on. Yeah, and many times
we always hear, oh, my Schwab account is online, they're protecting me and things like that. But okay, but like you said, Bryan, if they get access to your cell phone and not your cell phone, but your account, and then they can then use while you're sleeping at 2 a.m. and they reset these passwords and able to get in.
And like the hell that you go through, just to give people a heads up, you're gonna wake up and you're gonna figure this out, and then you're gonna start trying to do something about it, and then you're gonna realize they own you. Like you're going to change something and they're going to change it right back. And it's going to be this cat and mouse game. And you're going to wonder like how they own you so bad. And that's what you're going to be left with. I mean, I know people that went and got new cell phones and were still getting locked out of their accounts for days, for weeks.
Yep.
And while they're doing that, they're on your WhatsApp asking all your friends for money. And
or whatever, right? Making you look like a crypto expert on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then they're getting all your friends.
Yep. And the cycle continues because then now they got your friends to like click on the link and go to, log in and things like that.
We had one business, Bryan. We had to put them on way to get them out of the iCloud and the iPhone and all of that jazz for a year. So if you're an iPhone user, imagine having to use Android for a year just to get the bad guys out of your crap. That ought to scare you right there. Not me. I love Android, but I'll scare a lot of people.
All right, guys, moving right along here. So we got even your healthy lifestyle choices aren't safe, believe it or not. These cyber criminals, they just hate everybody.
But it's AI powered.
What's that?
But it's AI powered. What do you mean?
There you go. Hungryroot, a food delivery and health brand, has allegedly been breached with over 1 million records already circulating on the dark web. My God, the next story proves Bryan right. With just like the victims out there that are getting hit. And what's that?
Sorry. Oh, no. I was just going to say the crazy thing about it, but you can.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, this is like everybody's getting, all these businesses are getting hacked, right? And everybody thinks like the business is the victim, but the reality of it is the individual is the real victim. The records that are being stolen here from these businesses are the real victim, right? So, Randy, where do you want to take this? Do you want to talk about the businesses or you want to talk about the people?
Yeah, I want to talk about several things here because this jumped out at me because, okay, so one, the breach happened like Sunday night. It's Tuesday right now, Tuesday morning. The breach happened like Sunday night. Records went on the dark web yesterday. So most likely this is not like your typical ransomware or something like that. Most likely it's a server or an AI app that's left exposed. And that is a huge problem right now. We got all these people doing all this vibe coding. Vibe coding is when you use AI to write all your stuff and it does a great job and whips out something. Or you're using apps, not going to name any names. I saw a big interview with one of the CEOs a couple days ago of one of these app makers. A lot of smugness about this stuff, man. And it was kind of driving me crazy. So anyway, that looks like what probably happened here. And we're looking at a lot of stuff: full names, emails, billing address, passwords, all orders, all customer information, all coupons. Like I said, most likely they just pulled it right off a database that's just sitting out there on some AI app, or I don't know anything about Hungryroot. I don't know how they did all their coding for this. Did they do it by hand? Did they use AI? Are they using an AI app? It sounds like it's just pulled off a database out there. And here's the thing, Brian, 1.1 million. It's, yes, the company's going to pay for it.
It's almost 1.2, just so you know.
What's that?
It's almost 1.2.
Yes. And the
1.180.
Yeah. And the company will pay for that. But, it is the consumer who's going to pay for that. Because
right. So
you're going to
up
get
on the screen, we have, this is the dark web's page that, they were kind enough to provide to us in the article that we found here on the Daily Dark Web. They did blur out the
deets,
tours, the addresses and all that stuff. So you can't go run into the dark web and accessing this, but if you know what you're doing, you can find this stuff. It's not that hard.
Right.
But ultimately, this gives you a picture, right? That this person posted this and they are going to sell this. Sometimes they sell this as auction style to the highest bidder, and sometimes they just sell it off over and over to whoever, whatever groups want to buy it. Big things that stand out to me from the screenshot: they have the full name, email, billing address, passwords, and all orders from this organization. So let's talk about customers of Hungryroot. Obviously, they stole a SQL database. Obviously it's a dump of a SQL database. So they somehow nailed their database with all their customer information, orders, and coupons. So let's talk about like what now happens when somebody purchases this. What are they going to do?
Well, again, you got July 4th coming up, and someone's going to get a July 4th, buy one get one free on tofu, meal plan or something like that.
Yes.
And all you have to do is click here, and they already know your order history, and they know like what you like, and that's going to be one way they're going to get into your Gmail, your 365 account, and then go from there.
Yeah, guys are going to jump on this right away. Anybody who's ordered in the last week is probably going to get an email or text message about said order.
Yep.
Right. And click here, check here, SMS message, click this. You're not going to think anything of it because you just bought this from Hungryroot. And like, how would some scammer know that you just bought something?
Right.
It's got to be coming from Hungryroot. How would they know? Right. Your guard is way down on this.
Yep.
Because you have no idea that they got breached. And you're going to get a text and you're going to click on a link and you're going to get nailed.
And you said no idea that they got breached. Go to hungryroot.com website. go from the top to bottom, nowhere, not even a little pop-up, nothing. They're acting like everything is okay.
And crazy thing, y'all, how many times have the three of us at one time or another sat in on a cybersecurity risk assessment that we're presenting to a business, and we brought up the point that maybe not specific names, but that certain people were using the same passwords over and over and over, and the room goes silent. A lot of people use the same passwords over and over and over. There's a really good chance that their Hungryroot password is also their 365 password, their bank password, who knows what, right?
That's another thing. I mean, you're going to have a different subset of cyber criminals who do what I said, and then they're going to do what Randy just said, which is buy this list to try to harvest your 365 or Gmail and try to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So what they have, why I say they're probably different groups, is because they have different specialties. Like one group is really good at social engineering, right? Another group might be really good at just running a bot through M365 and Gmail, that doesn't set off any kind of like, hey, are you a human, like CAPTCHA things. And it just, at certain intervals types in the next username and password to see if it works and see if it triggers anything. And they will get into email accounts as a result of this breach.
Yes, they will.
Because people are lazy, right? Right, Randy? So.
Well, they're just trying to get their work done, but imagine, okay.
People are crazy. That's the country song. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Beer, God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. That's right. That's the country song.
People are lazy too.
But how many CEOs are using Hungryroot that have, or IT admins, CFOs, CIOs?
But Steve Jobs' password is breached.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. Oh my gosh.
Is that too good of a joke? What's that?
I said the possibilities are endless here. It's disturbing, man. You're making me angsty.
Well, and one last thing about this as well is they got breached on the 29th, and on the 30th, everything was on the dark web.
Yeah.
So there was no encryption, nothing.
Yeah, you got to strike while the iron's hot with that one. That's a well-known e-commerce site, a smaller one, but I think most people have heard of it. All right, boys. So marketing firm Tenacious Marketing, these marketing firms, they don't just help businesses grow. They collect and store tons of customer data, information, behaviors. And that's what made Tenacious Marketing USA such an appealing target. And now over 400,000 records are reportedly on the dark web. And there's another one here. We got a nice little screenshot of a blurred out dark web page on a form where they're selling this database of 400,000 names. And Randy, what kind of information could these marketing firms have, and why do cyber criminals like to go after them? It seems like more increasingly lately.
Yeah, that's part of why this one really struck out at me, because they had the data, full name, phone number and mobile, full address, email address, date of birth. Okay, so you mentioned earlier in the show, like if they can get a hold of your phone number or your phone, then that could be the keys to the kingdom for some people, depending on what other information that they have, how good their passwords are, et cetera, et cetera. And that information, just to the first half of this list, they could use that to steal people's numbers, like call Verizon, get verified with date of birth or whatever, and then say, yeah, I've got a new SIM, going to pop it over here into my, my new phone. So that right there, disturbing. But then here's what is crazy. Accident, state, and category, date of injury, hospital name, law office details, and lead status. So the first thing when I read this, I thought, oh, some AI wrote this article and somebody was copy and pasting and forgot to clear the bottom part of that list. It's like left over from something from last week we talked about, which was something very similar to that. But it turns out these are leads. leads for lawyers. So I'm not sure how they came up with this data. Did they use the breach we talked about? It was either last week or the week before. We talked about a literal breach that had injuries in it. Did they use that breach to like make leads for lawyers, which that opens up a whole nother can of worms, because that would probably be illegal for them.
Why?
How did they get this information?
Why?
I'm not blaming anybody or anything like that.
Why would it be illegal?
Asking, right? But yeah, this is pretty bad. Yes, sir.
Why would it be illegal for a marketing company to go and buy a list and then start sending them emails saying, "Hey, we know you were part of this breach"?
Yes.
Why would it be illegal?
Why? I don't know. I would think it'd be illegal because of the private health information involved. If they had access,
They're not
to
buying that. They're just buying names and email addresses.
Right. But what's in this breach is the date of the injury, the state. So there's PHI in what was leaked.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. How'd they come about that? Makes me asking.
You're right. I mean, if they bought that and that was part of the data set, it would have been smart on their part to get rid of that if they didn't need it necessarily for the marketing purposes. But it is interesting. I mean, would you in your business, like, look, we could do that in our business.
Yeah.
We could go on the dark web and buy names of companies that we know have been breached and reach out to them and say, "Hey, we know you were breached. If you don't want to have that happen in the future, reach out to us. We protect companies from this even becoming a problem in the first place. And if you had us on, May 31st, maybe you wouldn't have got hacked on June 1st. Right. Type of thing. You could do that. I personally don't think ethically I would want to do that. I just feel like it's a dirty way of going about getting business. I would choose to stay away from that myself, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's MSPs out there pulling stuff off the dark web and going after companies as soon as they show up.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I guess in this case, do they normally do marketing for lawyers? And they're just pulling it off the Perplexity,
Hey, they're tenacious.
That's right. Maybe they're getting it off Perplexity. Maybe this is all public knowledge. I don't know, but having the date of birth and that stuff in these records, it's probably what you said. It was something that they bought that then had all of this stuff. They probably should have cleaned it up, before they put it out there on their server or whatever. But this is going to be.
That brings up another disturbing point, which is like, where is your data actually? Like, people don't understand. Like,
yes,
like your data gets replicated and pushed off and sold or stolen without your knowledge, probably multiple times a day.
Yep.
Like, that's how bad it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're using some type of like public records, police reports, or something like that. That's just giving information out as far as like this person got in this car accident, because all of that stuff is in the police report, and then from there they're using that as their secret sauce when they present to the attorneys to say, this is why you want to use us, is because look at all this information, and we can now go ahead and send this out as marketing on your behalf.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they obtained it illegally or did anything illegal or anything like that, but I'm just saying it does raise a lot of questions.
It's interesting. I mean, these are all interesting tactics that we talked about today.
Yep.
And we're talking about how far-reaching cyber threats have become and what is being done with the data that's spilling over into the dark web as a result of these breaches. We've had billion-dollar insurers who've lost information, marketing companies, airlines, and we broke down today how these breaches should be destroying trust, but don't seem to be really resonating with the average individual unless, you become a victim. And I think it's going to take that. I think it's going to take people becoming, I hate to say it, but this could replace, whatever the number one crime is right now, right? It could replace that very quickly, like when this starts happening to millions of people. And it's why the FBI is concerned, why they're coming out and naming organizations like Scattered Spider and making the public aware of these names, because they're attacking both businesses and individuals. And they need to stay one step ahead, and individuals are going to have to start playing in this game too. This isn't just a business only problem anymore, because businesses just did such a poor job, and we knew this day would come, and we're just starting to see it play out. And I think it's just AI is just going to be the accelerant on the fire that's going to make this happen quicker. So if you found this episode valuable, please like, share, subscribe, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, stay safe, secure. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, y'all.
See you later.